Hey guys, it's Paradise, and what if I told you about a new build that basically one-shots everything and does it with style? We don't like to exaggerate builds and claim everything is the best and overpowered, but the thing is, for this video, this build is actually insane. A lot of people in the community and on the wiki comments are putting this new Ash of War in an effective S tier for the new things added in the DLC, and I didn't quite believe it. That is until I respect, made my build, and oh my gosh, this thing is straight busted. Drop a like and comment if we help you out with this build, and seriously, tell me what you think about it after trying it. All you need to do is not get killed while charging the slash, and with the right build and stats, it's not actually that difficult. It just requires the smallest amount of skill and positioning. The damage is just so high it barely matters. Firstly, you need to grab the new Carian Sovereignty Ash of War. It's located here near the Church District High Road Grace Point. Just follow this path as you can see on the map, loop around on the west side of the cliff where there is a pathway descending down until you reach a cave at the end where a scarab will be hanging from the ceiling. Shoot it down with magic or ranged weapons, defeat it, and you've got this Ash of War. Now all we need to do is slap this on a greatsword, more specifically the Claymore. You might be wondering why, and that's because greatswords give this skill more poise, or effectively some hyper armor, allowing you to actually tank some hits. Not every hit in the game, but some hits you can actually still tank while charging the slash, and the greatsword also hits hard, and well, we want to hit hard. You want to attune the greatsword to magic, as this allows it to scale off of int, and our damage is going to be coming from our magic, so we want to juice our magic damage as high as physically possible. Make sure your claymore is leveled to plus 25 for maximum damage, and you're almost ready to go on a spree of absolute chaos. The Ash of War itself does have a long charge time, and it costs 30 FP on the initial charge and then 12 FP on the follow-up slash. But both of these deal massive damage, with the first hit actually doing 2 instances of damage very close together in a shockwave. So standing close to a target is ideal to deal the most damage, even though it has a long range. So you might be wondering, what about the rest of our gear to complete this build? I've actually done some extensive testing across the armor set, the different staffs, and a bunch of talismans, as some things synergize with this and others don't, even though they have very similar wordings or passives. So for your secondary staff, because we will want some spells, which I'll show you shortly, I'm going with the Carian Regal Scepter. I suppose you could take whichever one you prefer. I think the Azure Glintstone has a good passive of increasing the cast speed, so maybe that's a good option too. But this one definitely has really good scaling with int. I believe this is just the best all-rounder for most int builds, because you can still bring any int magic that you like. But one thing that I definitely tested was the Carian Glintstone Staff, as this boosts Carian Sword Sorcery. But interestingly, having tried the spell both with and without this staff on against the same mob at the same distance, the damage was exactly the same, so the actual passive effect of this staff does not work with the Ash of War. So pick the staff that you prefer. I think the Carian or the Azures is going to be the sort of best options for this one. I think the Carian is just a good all-rounder, so I like to bring that. Now for your armor set, this is where things get extra interesting, because the Spellblades armor set, if we actually look, each individual piece says strengthens Glintstone sorcery skills. And interestingly enough, this actually does increase our damage of the Ash of War. I've tried both without the set and with the full set, and I was dealing more damage with the full set. Now, you don't have to use this. This is a way to get some extra damage in the build, and if you want to chonk bosses and enemies like in one hit, you want to juice your damage as far as possible. However, of course, having more poise is always good, and having more defensive and damage negation is always really good. So what you could do is swap this out for as heavy an armor set as you can basically fit on. It all depends on your equipment and what kind of dodge roll you want. You could go for a medium dodge roll and wear, you know, like something super heavy like the Tree Sentinel armor if you have the endurance for it, and you will want high endurance. We'll go over the stats soon, because stamina is one of the biggest issues with this build. Surprisingly enough, as an int build, stamina is a big problem, but the Spellblade set will juice our damage that little bit further. For our actual talismans, the Shard of Alexander, of course, is a go-to. This thing boosts the attack power of skills, and our skill is our weapon Ash of War, or our weapon unique attack. This will juice the damage further, so this I would say is pretty much mandatory. Interestingly enough, this is one of the few builds that actually utilizes the Godfrey's icon, as this does count as a charge skill, so you want to slap this on. This does increase the damage. Now for our next 2 slots, you might not want to go with what I've got on here. If you have the magic Scorpion charm, that will increase the damage you take, but will increase your magic damage, and that's going to be a really good one. Unfortunately, I don't have the magic Scorpion charm. If anyone's playing on PlayStation and has this and is willing to drop it for me, I would be eternally grateful. But so far, I've asked around and no one can drop it for me, so I'm going to have to go without it. But I think that's around a 20% damage increase, so imagine all the damage you've seen in this video, add like 20% on. That's how much you could be dealing if you did have that item. I would recommend the green turtle talisman though, as this will increase our stamina recovery. And again, stamina is a big problem because it absolutely chonks through our stamina if you cast it back to back. So I quite like the green turtle talisman. And then I've got the Dragon Crest Great Shield, and again, you could actually swap this out for the Pearl Drake one, depending on if you're fighting a physical damage dealing enemy or a non-physical damaging enemy. This last slot's kind of up to you. You know, you've got a ton of options like the Erdtree's Favor to further increase your equip load if you want to have some higher armor. This also increases your maximum stamina, so that's quite nice to have. Then on top of that, you've got things like the Marika's Saw Seal that will give you a bit more intelligence, which is just going to push your damage higher if you can't reach the soft cap of 80. We'll go more into stats soon. And then you have the individual stat raising ones like the Stargazer's Heirloom here to get another +5 on intelligence. So depending on what your level is and if you can reach the soft caps, you may want to put pure intelligence in some of these slots so you can deal more damage. But these are all of the sort of gear pieces that I would recommend, and again, the Magic Scorpion Charm is going to be really good for this. If we go over to the Site of Grace though, we can actually look at what spells we want to bring. So there's two that are very important to this build, and then after that you have many free slots, as you can see I have, to put in literally whatever you want. Obviously the Pebble is really FP efficient but doesn't deal a lot of damage, but you could bring any of the spells that, you know, is Agida's Moonblade, just chef kiss, absolute amazing, love that spell. You can bring them if you want, play it as a traditional imp build and use this as backup. But what is vital for your damage is going to be Terra Magica. This places a, I'll just do it right now, I'll just show you. If you aren't familiar with this skill and you're playing in, I'm not sure what's going on there, but basically this puts an AoE on the floor, and while you're stood inside of this AoE, your magic damage increases. So what you want to do is pop this down and then cast it on the enemy. So you can either run up to the enemy and drop this, or place it down and bait the enemy over to you and cast, but this will increase your damage output while you're inside of it. And of course we have the Renala's Full Moon. You could put Ranni's Full Moon if you want to, but it's entirely up to you. What these basically do is, if anything that they can, like, we'll shoot the moon out, anything that the moon hits, and it will home in on enemies as well, it will put a debuff on them, causing them to take more magic damage. So we're going to be stood inside of our magic boosting AoE and debuffing them with Renala's or Ranni's Full Moon Sorcery. That way we can just cap out our damage even higher. After those two, of course, put on whatever int spells you prefer and you like to run in your imp build. It's not really important after that. For our Wondrous Physick mix though, there's two that I would recommend, and there are some alternate options. I like the Bloodsucking Tear. This does drain your health, but it is a massive 20% increase to attacks, and the Magic Shrouded Crack Tear will boost our magic attacks even further. If you don't like the Bloodsucking Tear because it does drain your HP and you need to manage that and keep drinking health potions, then you could swap it out for either the Damage Negation. This is a good all-rounder, so you take less damage if you're struggling, you know, with dying to the bosses or the mobs. And you also have the ones that give you flat stats. So you've got the flat intelligent boosting one here, the Intelligence Knot. This gives you +10 int, so you could theoretically make the build to 70 int, pop this on, and every time you drink your physics mix, you're at the soft cap of 80. If you don't want to use that, you could also use something like the Stone Barb Crack Tear here. This will increase your poise damage. This thing already hits like a truck for poise damage. This will push it even further and help you knock those bosses over, so you can get another window to do it on them without, you know, being in danger of getting attacked back. So yeah, with a bunch of different testing, trying this out across all different items and talismans, that's everything I would recommend to take this build to the next level. So now let's go over the stats, and just in case you forgot, in the base game map, which again you can press R1 to switch between the DLC and the base game, you want to go to Renala, not the new Ralana, no, we're going to Renala, here in the Grand Library of Rhea Lucaria. We're going to need larval tears for this, and we did do a video on all the new larval tears in the new Shadow of the Erdtree expansion, so if you need more larval tears, we've got you covered on the channel, so just go and take a look. But you want to do Rebirth here, click yes. Obviously you need at least one larval tear. So for our Vigor, I'm going to actually suggest the full 60 this time. To be honest, I have played most of my base Elden Ring and the actual expansion with about 40, but I do actually recommend 60 for this, as you want to be a little bit more tanky as an int build, especially if you're not using a high damage negation armor set. So go for the full 60 here. I feel like 50 to 60 is where you want to be for this int build. For your mind, you could go anywhere between 30 and 40. I've gone for 36 just because of my sort of odd level, but 30, 35, 40 is going to be where you want to be there. For endurance, again, you could go between 30 and 40. I think 35 is a sweet spot to get enough stamina to be able to do it at least twice. But for strength, if you are using the Claymore like me, you could use whatever greatsword you want, but if you are using the Claymore, the requirement is 16 strength and 13 dexterity. And then for intelligence, if you can, you want to get it to 80. I know that's quite high. I'm slightly over the normal level 150 for people. That's why I'm giving you a range. You could go 50 vigor, you could go 30 mind, you could go 30 endurance, you could go lower than this. So 80 is the soft cap for sorcery. So what that means is if you're at 80, anything over 80 is so diminishing in its returns that it doesn't really make a difference, but up to 80 will make a difference. Remember what I said before though, you could go down to 70 if you don't have the levels, and this would allow you to use the Wondrous Physick mix intelligence knot. That will give you plus 10 while it's active for around 3 minutes, which will be pretty much a whole boss fight. If you want to go lower still, you could knock off 5 and put on the intelligence talisman heirloom or whatever it was. That will give you plus 5. You could even go all the way down to 60, put on the Marika Saw Seal for another plus 5. So you have plus 5 Marika, plus 5 with the other talisman, plus 10 with the Wondrous Physick mix, and that could effectively boost you up to 80. So that way you can hit it no matter really what your level is, as long as you're around level 150. But 80 is the sweet spot. Dump Faith, dump Arcane, we don't need it in this build. So these are the rough stat spreads, again, with the ranges I've mentioned for the previous stats. Alright, so we're going to test this out, and we're going to go against one of these giant golem enemies up ahead. There's one with a big bow and one with a melee weapon. We'll try and get both of them. And you're going to see the crazy freaking burst damage. We're going to pretty much one-shot this first one with the bow, and then we'll go against the melee one that's a bit further back. Interestingly, I'm not even going to use my Wondrous Physick mix on this first one. I'm going to save it for the second one. I think this one has around 20k health, and we should just be able to take him out. So we're going to get really up close. We'll drop Terra Magica. We'll do a Rani's Full Moon. And we'll start charging up. Boom, 18k, 19k. That's 2 instances of damage, by the way. Oh my god, this doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair. Okay, now for this guy, we'll get the Renala's Full Moon out on him. I'll drink a potion. And I'll go under his feet. Do Terra Magica. I'll actually drink my pot for this one. 26k damage. 9k damage. I'm not in my Terra Magica anymore, but I'm going to go for it. 12k. And you see we ran out of stamina. That's where the stamina regen, it comes super important. 20k on that downward swing back in the Terra Magica AoE circle, as you can see. So you can see the damage difference when you're in the ring and out the ring. You can see the damage difference when you pop your Wondrous Physick mix with all of your good stuff in it. This is insane. I don't know what to say. I'm kind of expecting this might get nerfed. But please tell me what you think of it down below, and if you do enjoy the build, make sure to drop a like and comment to let us know. We have way more Elden Ring content coming your way soon, so make sure you're subscribed. And that's it for now. I'll see you next time.